This is DW News Live from Berlin. The Afghan capital Kabul rocked by a suicide bombing. Dozens of civilians are killed as they line up to register to vote in elections later this year. Also coming up, the political crisis in Armenia deepens. Police arrest 3 prominent opposition politicians, among them the man leading days of mass anti-government demonstrations. And Germany's Social Democrats elect their first female leader, but with far fewer votes than expected. Does Andrea Nahles have the support she needs to turn the party around after years of decline? I'm Helena Humphrey. Good to have you with us. In Afghanistan, a suicide bomber has killed 52 people, including at least 5 children, and wounded more than 100 in the capital, Kabul. The bomber detonated explosives at a voter registration centre. Afghans are concerned such attacks could prevent elections from going ahead later this year. In Armenia, police have arrested 3 prominent opposition politicians, including Nikol Pashinyan. Now, he's been leading the anti-government demonstrations in the capital, Yerevan. His arrest came just hours after Prime Minister Serge Sargsyan walked out of a televised talk with him. Armenia has seen 10 consecutive days of protests since Sargsyan became Prime Minister. He just served a 10-year term as president. Protesters are demanding he step down. Police in Yerevan are currently moving to calm demonstrations. Well, on the line now, we can speak to Narek Seferian, an independent researcher in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. Narek, several opposition leaders have now been arrested. On what grounds, and what will this mean for the protests?
The opposition leaders were first taken into custody, and after a while, the police issued a statement alleging that they are organizers of illegal protests. The protests have been deemed illegal before, but until today, the police was showcasing much more restraint. But today, they have all been formally arrested, and there is a legal question surrounding this point because 3 of them are members of parliament. So the National Assembly has to approve of their being arrested. The rallies and protests continue at various points throughout the city of Yerevan and across the country. There is a major clash happening at the spot where at least 2 of the 3 detained are known. The main leader, Nikol Pashinyan, there are rumors about his whereabouts, but this has not been confirmed yet. For the past week or 10 days, every evening at 7 p.m. local time, there has been a huge rally in central Yerevan's Republic Square. Quite unprecedented in recent political history.
All right.
And there was a question about whether or not that would take place, but it will.
OK, so help us understand then the background to all of this. Why have the demonstrations against the Prime Minister become so angry now?
As such, there are questions of legitimacy surrounding politicians in this country, and elections tend not to be free and fair. There are often rallies after national elections. With a new constitution now and the new regime, the president, who had already served 2 terms, has taken on the role of prime minister with the same power. So he's essentially serving a 3rd term, but after explicitly promising, as the new constitution was being developed, to not run for office again. So this seems to have caused much more indignance than one might have expected. And the opposition leader, Pashinyan, who has a track record of organizing public rallies, has been riding this wave for the past week now.
It appears that the government seems unwilling to negotiate with the opposition. So what happens next?
It is an ongoing and quite honestly volatile situation. Pashinyan had presented a plan in which the prime minister would resign and a new transitional government would receive a vote of no confidence, thereby precipitating elections which would be free and fair this time. But as you saw this morning, Prime Minister Serge Sargsyan refused to negotiate on this point. He considers the position to be one of a very uncompromised ultimatum, and he accuses the opposition of having not very much public support because they only got 6 or 7% of the vote last time. However, we have seen tens of thousands of protesters, and so the opposition is boosted by this support.
Nareg Safari, an independent researcher in Yerevan, thank you. Now to some of the other stories making news around the world. In China, 17 people have drowned during a boat race practice on a river near the city of Guilin. Official state media said 2 dragon boats packed with paddlers overturned in an area of the river where the current was strong. Local media also says that the paddlers were not wearing life jackets. In Syria, chemical weapons inspectors have finally taken samples at the site of a suspected chemical attack in the town of Douma. Experts from the chemical weapons watchdog want to determine if internationally banned substances were used to attack residents there earlier this month. Several Western nations have blamed Syria for the suspected attack, which Syria denies. Now, in Nicaragua, deadly protests against social security reforms have claimed more lives. They include a journalist who was shot and killed as he covered the unrest live via Facebook. Authorities say at least 10 protesters have died, though human rights groups estimate the number is more than double that. Now, President Daniel Ortega says he's considering withdrawing the unpopular reforms. Germany's centre-left Social Democratic Party has elected a woman as leader for the first time in its 155-year history. Andrea Nahles was elected a short while ago at a special conference in the western city of Wiesbaden. She won 66% of the vote, beating Simone Lange, the mayor of the city of Flensburg. 47-year-old Nahles faces a huge task in reviving her party's dwindling fortunes. The SPD had its worst ever election result last September. And at that SPD party conference for us is our political correspondent Thomas Sparrow. Thomas, Nahles, the first woman to lead the SPD. How significant is that?
It is indeed significant, Helena, because we're talking here about the party described as the oldest in Germany, and also because Nahles has a very important task, a very important challenge ahead of her, namely to push the renewal of a party that has suffered a lot in recent months as it's gone from one crisis to the next. It is also important if you look at Germany's political spectrum, because Nahles is not the only woman now leading a party. We've got 4 women in Germany who either lead or co-lead political parties. So it is significant that Nahles has been chosen for a wide variety of reasons.
All right, 66% of the vote. That is what she's taking from her party. How convincing is that?
It shows, first and foremost, that not everyone is happy with Nahles, and not everyone believes that she will be able to push the party forward. So from that perspective, for her, it is not necessarily a fantastic result. But on the other hand, I don't think the SPD was expecting another 100%, which was what Martin Schulz, the former leader, had, that 100%, which was at first a dream, quickly turned into a nightmare for the SPD, as it then had its worst result in the German elections. So from that perspective, it is certainly possible, and certainly a bit more realistic, if you will. Instead of having high hopes, Andrea Nahles now has to work and try to unite the party and try to make clear what the party stands for and how they plan to achieve what that party stands for.
Well, let's be realistic. Social democratic parties across Europe have faced existential crises in recent years. Any chance now that Nahles can revive social democracy in Germany and potentially in Europe?
Her goal will be to try and revive social democracy in Germany, but some of the challenges that social democracy face in Germany are also challenges that other parties around Europe face, and that's something that we clearly saw here today, by the way. Social democratic parties are facing a very important question, namely what they stand for. Some of the voters that traditionally voted for the social democratic parties have now gone elsewhere. So the challenges that Nahles has are also challenges that other parties share.
All right, Thomas Sparrow, our political correspondent at the SPD conference in Wiesbaden. Good to talk to you. You're watching DW News. Plenty more coming up at the top of the hour. In the meantime, head to our website, dw.com. There's also Facebook and Twitter as well. I'm Helen Humphrey in Berlin. See you in a short while.